Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I'm just kind of post-mortem reviewing Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. The good, the bad, and the sometimes ugly, which translates to what I'm playing with Danganronpa 3. So I reviewed Danganronpa 1 before replaying it, and I don't think any of my thoughts really changed. Byakuya is a bitch and can go to hell because he's annoying. And guess what? 2 and 3 suffered that same fate. But I'll get to that later. Second game less so than the 3 now that I've dealt with it. But it's more Danganronpa. It's fine. None of the cases are amazing. None of them are bad, but this game and this franchise and this writer in general tend to have the give you everything to succeed to explain the murder and then pretty much explain the murder as it happened within reason, and then re-explain it near the end with closing argument. But I really don't know why they do the closing argument thing. It's really silly. And they did that in Raincode too, and I didn't like it there either. Because let's have you recap it in a comic book, just to recap it again in text, in voiceover. I'm like, we know how the murder happened, game. Silly. Anyway, minigames are the worst thing about Danganronpa. If you could tell, I'm doing this off the cuff a little bit, but what you've seen in 2 or 1, you're gonna see in 2. The setting is different, though. I do appreciate the setting being a tropical island and having a little bit more to do. Walking around, tying the skills you have to the points you earn while walking around. The pet mechanic is kind of goofy, but it's fun for what it is. I'm kind of glad that 3 got rid of it, though. But it's there. The real meat of Danganronpa is the characters. Because the whole setup is you have 16 characters. And one of them usually is a bad person. Or if they're not a bad person, they're an asshole. In this game, it's Nagito. I found Nagito to be less irritating than I remembered, but still until around chapters 4 and 5, where you finally get to kind of control him, or he kind of drops the whole facade of hope and despair and all that. It's so great and everything. No, it's not, because you keep talking about it. It's like Kokichi. He constantly talks like everything is a lie, because it is, and it's stupid. This game didn't know a hill it didn't die on 50 million times, or a hole it can crawl into and just do a pun or do a thing or talk a thing. It's like Tanko and Danganronpa 3 saying degenerate male all the time, or talking about Aikido all the time. I don't think 2 is as bad as 3 in terms of, well, this is my character, so I'm just going to oversay it and overstate it and overdo it and overstate it, because they had a little bit of a break between 2 and 3. 2 was like immediately made after 1, and you can tell, like within a year or 2, a lot of the same flesh is there. And again, 3 is just more of it still. One differentiation is having a support character, if you can call it that. Monami exists, and not in a good way. I think one thing that this franchise struggles with is laying on the comedy a little too thick and trying way too hard to make more out of Monokuma than there is. In fact, trying to add a different Monokuma in subsequent games rather than just having Monokuma be the same guy, or God forbid somebody different. You know, if you're gonna have Monokuma, you don't need the extras, and Monami is dumb. because yeah, she's a teacher and she's the nice one and she actually helps you in the end, but it's just she doesn't do anything. Her entire existence is such a joke that even the characters don't think anything of her too. But the comedy of Monokuma beating up Monami or whatever is kind of silly. Yeah, she gets a side story where she helps beat the Mana beasts and they unlock new areas and whatever. I didn't watch them in my playthrough. I didn't care for Monami at all. It's just there. And you have like interpersonal dramas here and there between characters, and some of them are fine. I like that some characters gravitated to each other as friends, much like in one with like Mondo and Kiyotaka. You have Hiyoko and Mahiru sharing time together, and then for different reasons. And other characters, you have Sonya constantly being pestered by people but finding a fondness for Gundam of all people, even though Kazuichi is the one that's fawning over Sonya over and over. His whole character, Kazuichi, is Sonya's great and it's dumb and it gets tiring, especially since I focused on Sonya as one of my characters in free time, and I'm just like, okay, she's weird and kooky, but not in the disturbing way that like Ibuki or, God forbid, Mew in 3 would be. Because it runs the gamut. You have your crazies, you have your standard people that I just want to be normal. Mahiru. You have, and I wish Mahiru got more. And maybe in 2x2 she does get more, whether she lasts longer, whether she commits a murder. She got nothing to do in this because she dies too early, and it kind of sucks. The mechanisms for murder get weirder and weirder. Admittedly, in 3 they get more and more fun, but they also get, you do have to suspend disbelief to certain extents for this stuff to work, like mechanisms of chance in some murders, especially 3, like the first one in 3, but I won't talk about that until I do 3 specifically. But you do have to suspend disbelief of like what a human can or can't do, and what is human and what is real, and especially with what 2 tries to do with the character's late game, which I'll just spend a little bit more time talking about later. Because it's a game! I had to do it. And I'm going to keep doing that because that was like one of the funniest things and dumbest things. But for now, just saying, characters, I had my favorites. Ibuki, Sonya, Chiaki. Chiaki is like the gold standard for the rest of the franchise, and it's not even close, because just this earnest want and need to help people without it becoming so boring. It felt like what Kaede could have been if Kaede were more human, I guess, and flawed in her approach, and if Kaede had lasted longer, right? Because Chiaki lasts almost the entire fucking game. So you do have that balancing act. You can't, like, because this is a problem with like horror stuff too. Like, you don't want to get too attached to characters because they might die in a moment's notice, or like you pick your favorites and they survive or they don't, and you're kind of thinking the game is wrong for it. No, the writer decides whether or not they survive or not. All they can really do is say, okay, have I done enough to make this character interesting so that if they survive long enough, that's fine. And some of them are better than others. Akane is nothing, though her side story did make me think, what the fuck is wrong with her life, that, her home life, that she's messed up that way. I did balance, like, I didn't even want to do Akane in the first place. It was more just circumstantial in chapter 4. But I will say a couple different characters just don't jive with me. Like Mikan, I'm not really into the shy people. and the fact that Danganronpa does this a little too often with liar reveals or murder reveal things where they change so drastically that it feels like even if they were the real person and they've been lying the whole time, it just seems like a drastic shift into you have a split personality, and it's kind of goofy. I'm like, okay, even if you mentally could do that, some reactions are a bit worse than others. Like, not everybody does that, and it seems like too many people veer into that in 2 and 3, and it, like, I get it, the desperation happens, but like Mikon goes from super shy girl to I don't really care about any of you and you fuckers are annoying, I'm like, okay, there's no build to it, she just does it. Peiko suffers the same way, and I think she's even less interesting because she goes from super stoic badass to not super stoic badass, and she wears a mask, and she's very goofy about it, and it is less effective than you'd think. At least with 1, you had this like suspension of, okay, people are mostly grounded despite the weirdness. 2 and 3 do kind of what Metal Gear Solid does, where it drops all pretense, and you just kind of have to go along for the ride. And, even with some of the murders being brutal, it does feel like, okay, this is a bit much. And you just have to accept that in a way. But you balance that out with, memorable characters on some occasions that are good, like Ibuki and Sonya, who have so much to work with. And even Kuzuryu, who's annoying at first, gets to build some sympathies near the end. I will say, I don't know why Gundam is popular. I think this is a Japanese thing versus like American viewing, like the Chunubyo or however they pronounce it. Like, I get it with Megumin from Konosuba. They're satirizing the concept, and it's goofy as shit, and she's great at it. But Gundam trying to be a Chuny doesn't work with this cast. He just comes off as he's trying too hard, even if the actor is working his balls off to make you believe it. Nothing he says is believable until he drops the facade and just is unsure of himself. So it's like, his facade is dumb to begin with. And like, yes, I get it, he has hamsters and gerbils and guinea pigs, and that's cool and all. Like, I love one of the characters in Marriage Toxin because she's a hamster master, right? Her whole thing is she can control freaking hamsters. It can be adorable. But when you add on the hamster stuff and the Chuny stuff and the fact that Danganronpa talks so much shit because it's a visual novel, it gets old. And even if a character could be interesting, the fact that they just basically ring out every goddamn thing of a character over and over again to the point of numb, it just doesn't always work. The murders themselves followed 1 a bit too much. Specifically, what I'm noticing is a trend in 1, 2, and 3 is that the third case always has 2 murders. And it doesn't have to. And even like 3 is going under the idea that it was the first, like, one of them was accidental in the first fucking place, and they're trying to do these rug pulls where it's super interesting that these characters or whatever. Yeah, you can make it make sense, but it does feel after a while you're just treading on old ground. And I get that's why the director took a break from it and went with Raincoat and 100 Line, and only now, after a decade, came back to it. Because you do need to change it up a little bit, and I do hope that 2x2 does change it and whether certain characters I like live or not, or have different coats of paint or not, just having different types of murders happen to where, like, they aren't following kind of the same formula, where, oh, a character I was starting to appreciate and like as a whatever dies in the first case, and then somebody else freaking dies unrelated in the second case, but then, oh no, two people die in three. They did get away with the fourth murder and the fifth, but there is this tendency that you are following the same structure. You get more places to go, you do more things in the chapters, you go to try new places, you do more free time, you get a murder, the formula, the gameplay loop is fun, and I do think 2 and 3 try to give you more things to do, but it becomes a problem. Like, 2 introduces logic dive, and it's fun, but I didn't play it very fun. You have this like rail skiboarding thing, and you try to jump over panels and ride around it and avoid traps, and then go to the certain thing, go around. I played it so slow that I didn't need any of the boosts, and I don't think I played it as fun as other people would, just run and gun and have fun with it. I think you're meant to do that. Hangman's Gambit in 2 is the fucking worst. And I was so glad that 3 changed it up completely, even if it's not as good as 1. It's, and even then, like, I'm grading on a curve, because these mini games are terrible. Like, the non-stop debates are fun because everybody's talking and everybody's interacting and everybody's doing a thing. But anytime this or Raincode try to do minigames, it's falling flat on its face. They try to do very basic minigame shit that but they do it so fucking poorly. It just looks chintzy and second rate, even for a B or C grade video game. It's just like, man, like, way to just wear yourself down and bog yourself down with really chintzy crap, even for a really chintzy franchise, because I'm not saying Danganronpa's high art, but my god, between this and Ultra Despair Girls being a shitty stealth game, ugh, they can't do anything except the murder mysteries, and even then, they bog it down with closing argument, which they do every fucking game, because I said this before, why do you need to refresh and rehash everything about the fucking case? I don't need to know that. I already know, because you rehashed it right near the end to talk about the fucking murder and catch the dude. So catch the fucking dude. The Panic Time events weren't really good. I think Rebuttal Showdown could be interesting, but it's not fleshed out enough. It's just swipe the screen and, hit a button and then cut the thing. I do like in 3 that you're able to lie instead of just agree with people. So you can still do agreement, but you're lying with people. So the cool thing is adding not just disputing people, but agreeing with people in terms of consent. I always kind of like it if a character I like is saying something that I know is true, and I hit the consent button, and I get this little like smiling face at the side, and it that part is cool. But Hangman's Gambit basically going very fucking slow, and you're supposed to connect 2 little jelly things with the letters in it, and then press the button to get to the button. But you have to do every single fucking letter. It takes forever. And if not for Psych Taxi, I think that it would take the longest thing in ever, because you're waiting for these things to go, and you already know what the letters are going to say. But at least with Hangman's Gambit 1, you knew like most of the letters. They expect you to fill out every single fucking letter in Hangman's in 2, and it gets old. It just does. So I'm waiting there to get the letters I want, but it keeps running into other shit, and I'm not fast enough to get rid of the letters because I don't want them to fuck up and do more damage. So I'm taking damage from the ones running into other shit while I'm waiting for the other letters to come by, and it just gets dumb. they had to find a different way to do Hangman's Gambit. So they did, and it sucks way less in 3. And, that is what it is. What I will say about the ending, there are many things I don't like about it. And I don't think I liked it in 2. And honestly, I think I like this ending less than 3. Even though more people tend to be reminded of 3's ending more than anything else and hating that one in the same way that they hate Star Ocean 3. I get that. But bringing Junko back in virus form was very silly, because you're essentially saying that nobody from the rest of the franchise will ever mean as much as Junko, and you just want to bring her back. Her ultimate despair thing and the multiple personalities thing, I love the multiple personalities. Yeah, I get to say fuck you a lot, bitches. Like, that's, that one is fun. But you have other side personalities that aren't all that interesting. Like the one that talks like a chipmunk. I can't do it the same way she does. She talks like a weird chipmunk thing and it doesn't work. Or talks like a teacher. Or talks like her normal self. Very slow and weird. And it's a cool idea, having 2 different actors do 2 or 3 different kinds of characters and personalities and balance back and forth. You then need to bring it back. And what's worse, because Junko died in the first game, you come up with this like ultimate despair simulation new world order thing. I forget the exact name of it, but Neo World Order, whatever the fuck, this program that Makoto and the others are trying to come up with these people who are the ultimate remnants of despair, and trying to like make them Neo World Program or something, where they're trying to scare them straight or rehabilitate them in a simulation, because it's a game, right? And one of the weird things about Danganronpa is Chapter 6 is pretty much just telling you what you already know and abiding. I don't understand the Monokuma abiding by the rules and making people decide if they really want to just die or if they want to get rid of the main villain. Like, of course they're going to get rid of the main villain. Yeah, you had, like, we can put you back in the game, or we can resurrect the other people, or you can just have the people living live and whatever, and then the husks die. But making it a virtual simulation and a virtual world just kind of cheapens the rest of it. Because, yeah, you have the mechanism of, okay, you're alive in the real world, but your minds are fucked up, so we need to turn you into normal people before we download and we upload your avatars back into the thing so that you're normal people. You essentially lobotomize them into normal people, however the fuck that works. But just making it a sort of Matrix vibe didn't work. Bringing Junko back for a second go round and then having her kind of not really show up in Ultra Despair Girls but kind of do it, and then also kind of but not really show up in 3, you have no faith in your other villain characters. And to be fair, when your opposition is Nagito or Kokichi, God forbid, Nagito does his best. But again, he's no Junko, because Junko doesn't spend the whole fucking game talking about hope and despair. Nagito is an issue of overdoing it. Kokichi is an example of overdoing it. Junko works because she only shows up in the last fucking cases, the last freaking chapters. So even if you do get annoyed by her, she's only there for like an hour. So it's maximizing your minutes rather than, okay, I'm around this person and I'm sick of them. The best villains are the ones that don't actually show up a lot, because you need that threat. And if you're not threatened by them, then what the fuck are you doing here? And yes, Junko is a threat in some way, but turning her into Sigma or Wily, where she's always the main villain, sort of, just doesn't, it never jived with me. And I do hope that 2x2 does different things, because they're trying to do 2x2. It was the more popular of the three. It was the most popular of the three games, admittedly. They did the most with their setting, and I think they're going to try and do more with it. But this gives them a second chance to redo the characters as well. And like I said, maybe some of them survive, or maybe some of them don't. I don't know. It would really be sucky if some people like Mahiru died early again, or turned out to be the villain early again, because I think there's something to be said for the normal characters being normal and just trying to live normal lives in a sea of weirdos. And you know, you don't have to do it where, okay, just because this person survived to the end doesn't mean that they're not surviving. You know, switch it up. Be like, maybe Nagito dies at first. All his bluster is bullshit, and he dies first. And, you know, some of the main characters that in the first game die early. Or frickin' Hajime, who's a blank slate, dies early. Making up for this, and then turning Chiaki into the main character. That'd be fucking something. I don't know, but something. There's things you could do because you're doing a different story. Now, whether this leads to changing it up and making a new splintered franchise like Danganronpa 4, Danganronpa 5, whatever, trying to do it again, I don't know whether you can after the events of V3, but maybe they can. I don't know. But taking the second game and its setting and doing more with it and changing the character setups and doing more with them could be good. You could turn some of the lesser fun characters into more interesting ones, or, you know, dial back on the shit I didn't like with some of the characters, like make Nagito more interesting and say different fucking things every 5 seconds. You know, you could do that. So if I sound frustrated by Danganronpa, it's mainly because I'm playing it back to back to back, and the formula that I'm noticing shows up too much too soon, because it's meant to. Like, they're traipsing on old stuff, and it gets boring after a while. The gameplay loop is the same, and that's fine. You're not meant to play these back to back to back. And I've learned that now. But with the way that I do video gaming, I tend to play the same franchise in trilogy form when I can, like Phoenix Wright, Somnium Files. If it's a visual novel and it's 3 games, I tend to do 3 games, boom. Something like a Final Fantasy or a Persona, I can bounce around a bit, but if they're direct trilogies, I'm more likely to just do both games or 2 games or all 2 games or 3 games or 4 games or whatever all at once. So maybe my issues with the formula are weird because I'm kind of going backwards in time. I didn't play 1 and 2 for like 15 years since playing this year. And the third one I only played 1 time. I remember it, but I don't remember the details of everything. I remember the ending and hating it. But now that I've seen it, I don't hate it as much as 2, and I actually respect it. But I'm weird like that, and I actually respected it because I knew what they were doing. The director said, fuck this franchise, and I want to end it. Until now. So, whatever. So, at least I will give them some credit. But, again, I'll talk about 3 in more detail on its own someday. But would I recommend 2? Yes. Again, I like Danganronpa as a sort of Phoenix Wright meets Zero Escape horror comedy goofball trial action game visual novel. There's so many weird things about it. The problem is the stuff that doesn't work about it is terrible. The minigames are terrible. Being cause it's a game doesn't work. Monami doesn't work. Monokuma being the villain and Junko being the villain again doesn't work. I would have preferred just a different setup. Not just another Mono Kid or a Mono Cub or whatever. Just a different thing altogether. Just be a different thing. Because I think Danganronpa, 100 line and whatnot, focus on mascot characters a bit too much. You could have tried something else, you know. But it is what it is. We knew Monokuma was the main bad guy for all 3 games. I got it. But it's fine. But it gets old. The comedy in these games works until it doesn't, which is a lot of the time. And it's a lot of show and tell, to the point of telling you over and over again, rather than just being smart that you came to the realization that you made the right choices. And I was following a guide, so admittedly my concepts might be different, but unlike Phoenix Wright, where you sometimes feel interested by the reveals, by the end of a Danganronpa case, you're so exhausted of knowing what the actual case is because they've beaten you over the fucking head with the answer 3 or 4 times over. They're just like, well, you've told the joke and you've explained the joke, and now you're re-explaining the joke. It's just, ugh. So, I love Danganronpa, but I know it has issues. So, it isn't up to par with Phoenix Wright. It isn't up to par with The Somnium Files. It isn't up to par with a lot of other visual novels. It lives in its own headspace. It's kind of like knowing that there's kind of a shitty game in there, but you still enjoy it, like a guilty pleasure. You just have to accept that very weird and very brutal and very coarse and just kind of chintzy. And this is coming from a 40-year-old, much less a 15 or 20-year-old, which is kind of the audience for this sort of thing. So, I mean, would I recommend Danganronpa? Yes. If you're into that sort of thing. If you're not, and you're, like, trying to see if you like it, well, how much do you like anime? How much do you like Phoenix Wright? Do you like those things? If you don't like either of those things, you're not going to like this. If you don't like anime, get the fuck out of this. Get the fuck away from this franchise, because it assumes that you're an anime fan, and you know its tropes, and you love it to death. If you don't know Phoenix Wright, I mean, why wouldn't you play Phoenix Wright rather than play this? Like, I would play Phoenix Wright 10 times out of 10 over playing this, you know, just cause, yeah, this is more my sentiments, right? This is more attached to me because I'm an anime guy, and some of the murders are fun, but man, if Phoenix Wright is a B+ or an A-, this is a C+. It has its moments, but man, does it drag, and man, does it make you work for the bare minimum of payoff sometimes. And it sucks because you know that inside it is an interesting idea that doesn't always work. And the fact that it's super popular and has spawned so much fucking fan material. You just go on Casting Call Club and see how many fucking Danganronpa ripoffs there are. Every fucking day. There is a rabid fan base for this shit. And I like it, but not that much. So, bear that in mind. It did some things well, you know, being a death game, video game sort of thing. I get that. It does something well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have so many sequels out of it. But it's stylized anime nonsense. And if you're not into any of that, then stay away. If you are into it, live with the fucking problems and you'll find a fun time. But you may want to avoid playing all 3 of them back to back to back, like I did. You know, just a word of warning. Anyway, that'll do it for me today. I wanted to do this before I could do a couple videos of Danganronpa 3 tomorrow, so I could record those instead. Because I didn't know how long this would take. But anyway, I did this one. Hokkaido gals are super adorable. That's late August. We've got Xenosaga 3. Speaking of a game franchise that actually did kind of know what it was doing until it didn't, and then it figured it out again. Let's see. Anime I can rewatch and not watch ever again. I've already got a couple in mind that I rewatch all the time. In fact, I'm rewatching Konosuba right now, and I'm loving every second of it. Konosuba! And then post-mortem of a game I hated. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. Or hate is a strong word. Grew to loathe, I suppose. If you thought my issues with Danganronpa were something, I think that game has it worse. As far as games I like that turned into games I didn't like the more I played them, Jesus. But that'll do for today. I will see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.